on. Okay, so when you're ready, your name and age.
All right.
And loudly.
My name is Troy Gustafson, and I'm 53 years old.
So what is the most positive, interesting anecdote of your entire experience in animation?
I remember when I was struggling trying to do my first fire test in effects animation, and I spent weeks on trying to do this fire torch for the movie Hunchback, and Disney Hunchback. And in those couple of weeks, I couldn't get it right, and I kept working on the same drawings over and over and over. And I remember one day where my supervisor, Chris Jenkins, came in, and he said, Troy, where is that scene you're working on? And I said, well, it's right over there, and I pointed to where it was on my desk. And he literally came over and picked up the scene and dumped it into the trash. I spent weeks on that. I mean, you threw my art away. And I was very, very upset to where the point was like, he could see it. So I was about ready to say something to him in that, and he goes, no, Troy, wait a minute, hold up. All right, because that was a diseased scene. And, all right, what do you mean diseased scene? I mean, I spent weeks on this thing, and you're calling it a diseased scene. He goes, what was the problem is that you had a problem with a part of the scene, so you worked it out, but then it caused a domino effect, and it was just passing on one to the next. He said the best resolve is to kill the scene or kill the disease and start new. Start a new one. You'll find that all the information that you had before will pass on into that second version, and it goes smoother, it goes easier. You get the answers quicker. And, all right, fine, still upset. And then I put his words to the test, and I started a new one, and he was right. So when I teach animation, I teach that you should never cling on to an art piece or an animation piece or a scene itself, knowing the fact that you may have to get rid of it and start over. And in that, you produce things better.
That was perfect. I'm just going to double check my focus here. Yeah, good. All right, so what was your first project that you worked on?
In the animation world itself, when I finished my internship, I was hired in and I started working on a Roger Rabbit short, Trail Mix-Up. And I was an in-betweener. I was hired as an in-betweener. Okay, and of course that's kind of on the lower totem pole, but I was pushing really hard to my supervisor, and I kept saying, can I at least animate something, a little bit something? So when I was working on the Trail Mix-Up, he gave me this, the beaver was cutting through these trees, and I got to do these little sawdust piles on the bottom, and I got to animate my first animation as an in-betweener, and I was hooked. I was hooked.
Okay. In your opinion, what defines animation as a medium in art?
What defines animation? I think in the sense of animation, to kind of follow, or to kind of push that, the way I'm thinking this, I was an illustrator. I got a degree as an illustrator. And one of the things about my drawing itself was that it was a single drawing. It didn't feel like it moved. It wasn't alive. And when I got into animation, it made me realize that we are trying to create something or make something come to life. So when I look at it and think about animation, it is we, the artists, the animators, that are imitating and bringing something to life, making something move. We're not just on a still, we want to make it come to life. And as the medium itself, animation covers a variety of things. We don't just do a character. We think about layouts, backgrounds, effects, all kinds of things. We deal with graphic arts, we deal with illustrations. In a layout artist, you're thinking architect, all kinds of things like that. So we cover a lot of different parts of the arts. Even in sculpting, we even cover that zone. Even in 3D, you're modeling, but even in the 2D world, we're also creating what we call maquettes, and we're sculpting. So what I love about animation is we're covering so many different variables of art in itself. And I think that's fulfilling for me. This is what Troy says about you.
All right, again, let's speak loudly and whenever you're ready. The first question for you is, when and how did you get into animation? And why did you choose animation? Or did it choose
It
you?
was an interesting setup because I was at the Kansas City Art Institute and I was getting a degree in illustration. And at that time, Disney was going through schools and for internships. And I remember when they came, I was a junior. And I tried out for the internship. And I failed miserably. My portfolio was not up to par for what they wanted. And they were really looking into the gesture drawings and the figure drawings. And I thought what I had was good enough, but apparently it wasn't. So they left. And then the next year they came. And I tried out again. And I failed miserably. The first time when I failed, I just, whatever. But the second time when I failed, I was upset. I was like, wait a minute. So I got the courage, which is interesting. I got the courage and I asked one of the gentlemen there that was doing the internships, and he said, what is it that you're looking for? And he did. He took the time, which is rare. He took the time and he said, here's what we're looking at. And he laid out a gesture drawing in front of me that was done by Pro. And he said, can you see that character getting into that pose? Yeah. Can you see it leaving that pose? I said, yeah. He said, that's the potential for an animator. They're creating a pose that they can see going into it and out of it in a single drawing. You're animating with a single drawing in that gesture. Wow. All right. So the next semester, I took about 4 different figure drawing classes from 4 different instructors, got totally confused, and I created this whole new portfolio so that when they came back again during my senior year, I presented that, and it was what they wanted. I got the internship, so I went to Disney, and I wanted to be a character animator. It was in my mind that I'm going to be a character animator because I'm doing illustrations of characters, blah, 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 and I was going to be a character. And when I went through the internship, they gave us a test of a mop, and it was pushing the soap bubbles. And it was then and there that when animation grabbed into my heart and just, this is where I belong. I knew that's where I belonged when I did that test, and I couldn't stop. It wasn't like nobody was telling me to do this. I had to. I wanted to know, how do you do water? How do you do lava? And I was doing this, all right? And at the end of the internship, they asked if I could stay. And I said no. And the reason why I said no was because I had 1 year left of school. I had to finish my college. I had to finish what I started. Unbeknownst to me, they were impressed with it. I didn't know that at the time. I thought I was like shooting myself in the foot with this one, going, this is the only time a Nebraska farm boy is going to get a chance at this. But I had to do what I had to. So I did. I went back and I graduated. I got my degree. And then they said, as soon as you're done, give us a call. I called back. And they said, no, we don't have one. And I figured there, I lost it. The doors closed. And the gentleman that I spoke with, he said, well, give us a call back in a couple of months. We may have an opening. So I did. And they had 2 openings, one in character. And before he could finish the sentence, I said, if it's effects, it's mine. He said, well, we do. And I was hired on as an effects animator, or not animator, but an in-betweener. But then they sent me to California in 6 months training under the masters there. And talk about intimidation. And those 6 months of training, working with some of the greats, Doris Lamford and all that, I just like, I don't know that I'm cut out for this. I can't do that. And I was about ready to quit because I couldn't do what they did. And I had a wonderful friend there in the animation world. He's in effects. Melissa, he turns around and he says, Troy, you got this all wrong. We all started where you're at, and we learned to get where we're at. You have to do the same. You would think I'd be smart enough to figure that out, but when you get intimidated by the greats, you don't think clearly anymore. And it dawned on me that he was right, and I learned. And what I did was I fell back to what I did in my internship. I just started doing little tests here and there and there and then. And I got so caught up in that world that they had an opening about a year later for an animator. And I tried, and I had all of these tests that I was doing on my own. And I presented them, and I was promoted to a junior animator, which is not an easy task to do. And I started working on Lion King as a junior animator. From the in-betweener in Roger Rabbit's short Trail Mix Up to Lion King, as a junior animator. And I just kept growing and progressing from that point. But I couldn't stop. And it was interesting, was wonderful, so super great about this effects being mine, is that 26 years later, I still feel it, and I still feel it even more. My passion and my love for effects has grown. It never peltered and leveled off. It gets more and more. Animation doesn't stop. It keeps going on and on and on. I'll drop, and I still will have only learned a portion of it. That's what I love about this animation. I hope I enjoy it, right?
Very good, Troy. Very nice. Okay, so let's talk about what is your role or specialty and why that role. What's your favorite part about it?
As I was saying, when I was in an internship, I was trying to be a character animator, but I got hooked. The animation grabbed me and told me, or made me feel more for the effects. So when I was working at Disney, and as I am now too, I'm a special effects animator for 2D or traditional 2D animation. I guess my title will always be an effects animator. I think that's it. Was there anything else to
No,
add?
that's fine. What do you love about that? But you kind of talked
Oh.
about that in the other thing. But what specifically do you love about effects animation?
The effects itself to me, what's entertaining, what's what grabs my heart about this is that I'm not stuck to a single character itself. I get to do so many different things. I can blow up a house like I did in Lilo and Stitch. Surfing like in Lilo and Stitch. I can turn around with smoke, waterfalls in Pocahontas. I got to do so many different things. I wasn't stuck to one certain thing, right? So I think effects really hooks me on that part, that I get to see the world in a totally different way rather than just a character. When I do effects, one of the things that I have to know is I do have to know character animation. I gotta know it, right? So I can't do my props, I can't do anything that's working with the character if I don't know that character, as well as layout. I have to know layout pretty dang good, because if I want to create a water splash or anything else that's going to happen within that stage, I better know what the layout's going to do, how it works. So I get to touch those two worlds. I have to know those two worlds to make my effects. I guess for me as an effects animator, what it is I'm not doing one little thing. I'm doing a lot. And for myself, for my personality, for who I am, I don't want to do just a little thing. I want to do a lot. I want to be in that world. And I think that's what really holds me into the effects, because it's not a little thing, it's a big thing. And if you really think about it, effects can really help a feature, a short, if it's done right.
Okay, great. What was your favorite project that you worked on? Was it the most popular or well-known? And then what was the most frustrating project that you worked on?
Mulan comes to mind right away. It was in the Florida team. It was our first. Right. We did a lot of help with California on others, but Mulan was ours. And the way that worked, everybody down there at the Florida team became such a tight-knit family, and how we all worked with each other. It was a phenomenal experience. And we took so much pride into creating something that would be recognized and honored and liked. And it succeeded that way. And from California's point of view, as well as a lot of people's, we became somebody in Florida who could do it. We were able to do our own. And that was a really awesome feeling. As for something frustrating, it was the end, when Disney let a lot of us go to venture more into the 3D and stuff like that. We took quite a few, but they let a lot of us go. And that was frustrating. And trying to move outside of Disney itself and getting away from that world and into a different world was the frustrating part of my career. So I started working for another company, a small company, and it didn't have the same kind of quality and the kind of work that I was used to doing and stuff like that. I adapted. You have to. That's the job of an animator, is you adapt. And I did. But I wanted my world at Disney. I wanted the drawing experience. And I still have my feelings for Disney as a Disney animator. I would never lose that loyalty to my family there.
Very cool. Let's see. I think I got most of them. So I guess that's about everything. What is there anything else you want to share, or what are you working on now? I know you're teaching. You want to talk a little bit about that?
It's an interesting, quick little story, if I can keep it quick. And most students know that I don't keep things quick. So I'll try. As I was working for that smaller company after Disney let us go, that company was letting us go too, so I had to find a job. And I didn't want to get out of animation. And I had a friend who was working at SCAD, and she said, well, Troy, why don't you try teaching? And I remember that. I did what I just did. I laughed. And I said, yeah, right. I'm production. I'm not a teacher. And the way I said that, it didn't sound like a teacher. But anyway, I said, no, yeah, but she goes, you're good at it. I said, I don't think so. Well, she knew my wife, too. And she told my wife, and of course my wife, we need to get a job, Troy. So to keep my wife quiet, I threw my name in the hat. So all right, fine, I applied. They called me. And I talked to the dean, and he asked me about effects. And if you talk to me about effects, I can just keep going and going and going and going. And that's what I did. I kept on going and going and going, you know. And after that, he said, we'd like to meet you face to face and do it. I'm like, I just hit the second level. How'd that happen? Right? And I've never done this before. I've never taught before I've done it. So I freaked out. And all right, because they said, you have to do a 30-minute lecture. Wow. So I didn't know PowerPoint at the time, so I learned feverishly to do PowerPoint, and I had things set up, and then I had handouts to give, and I'm panicking, and it was interesting. God had a different way of doing this. So I get here to do this interview and this lecture, and my luggage didn't come with me that day, and I was in freakish mode. I called HR. I don't have my luggage. I don't have anything that I was going to hand out or anything like that. Well, we can't really change the schedule. I have to stay with that. So with the shirt on my back and a quick shave from the convenience store that I buy stuff, you know, real quick, I get here and I'm introduced to this class. 20 students sitting there looking at me, and I'm going. Yeah, my name is Troy Gustafson. I was a Disney animator for effects, and I literally watched them settle in their seats to a boring lecture. I knew it. I could see it. And I had nothing to offer except I turned around and I said, do you have that demo reel that I sent? And they said, well, yeah, we have that. Could you put that in? So we took a few minutes, they put it in, and it was up on the screen. And that's where it went. 45 minutes later, I was done. I couldn't stop. I was explaining about what the directors were doing, what they were thinking, how we handled things, blah, 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 so forth and so on. And the students stood up and gave me applause. They liked what I did. And I guess that part, they showed to the dean and them that I could act off the cuff. I didn't have to, I could do it. And the students were really hungry for it. I wasn't teaching per se, I was just saying my experiences, but they were learning. And here I am, 8 years later. I love this. And the reason why I love this is because when I see that little light bulb click on, it's the same feeling I got when I saw my name for the first time in the credits on Lion King. Those two was the same feeling. When you get your name in the credits for a Disney movie, that's a pretty big thing. And when you get a student who the light bulb turns on, and you see the work, and the game is like, oh my God, you helped someone grow in life and in their career. How can you top that? So that's me. I'm here. I'm here until they let me go.
Very nice. Okay, one more time, say who you are, how old you are.
I'm Troy Gustafson, and I'm 53 years old. I didn't tell you that, but I would like to be known as a 39-year-old.
Okay.